80 years of innovation, the journey continues. Join HEAPY for an audio history series with our past and current presidents. Today we sit down for an interview with Rick Pavlak, who served as president of HEAPY from 2005 until 2020.
What time period were you president and CEO for HEAPY?
I was president from 2005 through 2019, so for 15 years.
About 15 years. And I mean, HEAPY grew a lot during that time.
We did.
Yeah. So, I mean, what were some of the things that you felt like set the firm up for that kind of growth?
Well, prior to when I was president, we were working on transitioning this from a small business to a corporation. And we had set some goals, both revenue goals, profit share goals, and growth goals. And back then, we thought the growth goals were kind of modest, and it was relatively easy to accomplish. Well, when you start back that far, you're starting with a very small company, and we had a growth goal of about 7%. Oh, by the way, which is doubling every 10 years. So 4 million becomes 8, 8 becomes 16. That's what drove us. We had saturated the Dayton, Cincinnati market and Columbus market as well, and we needed to reach out. And the marketing department started going out and talking to other regions. And the number one thing they came back to us with was, if you were here, we'd hire you. So that's what got us on the expansion and starting to put offices in other locations.
So that was the regional expansion. That was what drove it. You got feedback from clients.
Right.
Okay.
You guys are great. You're not here.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, our industry, the AEC industry, is very local.
Yes.
Like even national firms
especially
have to have
engineering.
That.
Yeah. People really want their engineers close. As we added services, even beginning in the late 70s, we started adding, doing energy studies and energy audits. And you just can't be driving all over the place. You've got to really be closer to your clients. So all of those came together to get us to start growing. So our growth goals and our clients wanting us to be where they are. We started looking at different locations. Obviously started, pretty close to where we were, but, Raleigh was my last expansion, which was a big reach. There were big contractors that we worked with that were there. There were large architectural firms that we worked with that had a Raleigh presence. It fit really well.
Yeah. You mentioned a little bit about energy audits and commissioning, and I think originally it was called the Special Projects Team.
Yes.
Can you talk a little more about how that evolved?
So I was hired by a partner named Dick Pearson, and Dick was really into advanced energy, very involved with ASHRAE at the technical levels. And when I joined the firm in 1978, ASHRAE Standard 90-75, the new energy code, was just adopted by the state of Ohio. And nobody had implemented it. So Dick gave it to me. He said, study this and create processes for our designers for compliance. And so I worked with Dick on that, and I actually also had the privilege of working with Marv HEAPY on that. I was a member of Dick ran a design team, but he had this little thing going with energy. And pretty soon we started adding more and more people, and Dick decided to break that group out as special projects and away from the design group. And as that group grew, it kind of grew back to what Dick had before. We ended up with with a large group of people who could design, people who could commission, and people who could control work, and did all kinds of really interesting projects.
Can you give me an example? What's one that sticks out to you?
Shortly after we got started, Dick had become a consultant to the Owens, Illinois company who built a evacuated tube solar collector in Toledo. And they had, with some partners, gotten a grant to build an advanced energy, low energy building. And it was, the owner called it Sun Forest Medical Center. Sun Forest Medical Center's grant application included solar heating and cooling, solar domestic hot water, and chilled water storage, with the implementation of a direct digital control system. Hardly anybody knew how to do any of that.
Right. It was very new.
Very, very new. And I had this interest in digital controls and digital computers in college. And so we worked with the design team, design build contractor. We got all that laid out. I did a lot of modeling of the thermal storage and other things. This is 1979. Okay, it's pretty early. And the modeling was fill out this book from Train, take it to a card punch location, and upload it to the cloud with a card reader. And a day or two later, your results came back. And you sure hope you didn't make a mistake, because otherwise you were repunching cards, rerunning it, and redoing it. But we did this energy model using a very early version of the Train Trace program that only ran in lacrosse. And we got that designed. And then after the project went under construction, the contractor mentioned to Dick, we don't know how to program these controls. Dick talks to me, and I said, oh, I can do it. And so we did. And it absolutely changed the company's view from the old pneumatic systems of the past to moving forward into digital. So it was just an unbelievable transforming experience for the company, moving into the energy environment and higher technologies.
Now, how old were you when you first got assigned the special projects work?
23.
And you got to work with Marv HEAPY.
Yes.
What was he like?
He was so smart. I have a story to tell of myself. So Marv loved charts and nomographs because that was the way to communicate to his design staff and make things quicker instead of run. Remember back then we had very limited calculators. We were just moving from slide rules to calculators. And those calculations took time. So Marv liked lookup tables and things that designers could use like that. So Marv drove me to run lots of simulations on things, lighting simulations and others. But one time I was working on an audit on steam lines, and I was hand calculating everything. And Marv walks over to me and he says, son, I'm really proud that you can do those calculations, but there's a chart for that. Okay. He would work endlessly to simplify a complicated system because he didn't really want to hang his clients with something that was too hard to use. And he was really good at it. I mean, really, really good at it.
I feel like, especially in the modern era too, that's a very important skill set, to be able to simplify complexity for our clients.
It really is. Because it's easy enough to put a bunch of pumps and valves in and write then some poor person has to learn and understand it
Now, one of the things I think you talked a little bit about was the digitization of the design processes and how HEAPY transitioned to that. And I think we actually didn't have an IT group until, what was it, 1992? That was during your tenure.
Yeah.
So I guess, what did that look like? What was the role of IT in those days, and how has it changed?
We first bought a computer. We actually bought two. We bought a Radio Shack TRS-80 to run some modest simulation programs. And then we actually bought a Texas Instruments to run accounting on. But there was another engineer who became a partner at the time. He and I worked together, Larry Smith, very also interested in computers. And we kind of formed this ad hoc committee to bring computers into the building. Now, Tom Fertelman was with another firm before he was at HEAPY, who almost sank themselves buying computers. So Tom was very skeptical and didn't let us overreach what was practical, and that turned out to be wise.
I want to talk a little bit about, like, what were some of the bigger challenges that maybe you had to address during your tenure when you were leading the firm, and how did the firm navigate those challenges?
Growth kind of destroyed all of the little processes that a small firm had put in place. So we had, a lot of challenges going on even before my tenure with quality control and education, and so we were very focused on solving those problems. ISO was something that we were, as engineers, more familiar with, but we kind of focused towards the ISO standard, but trying to build a system instead of just standards. We had standards, and we had practices. A lot of that we got from some professional management that was for engineering and architectural firms, but didn't scale very well. And ISO scaled for us. The other thing ISO did for us is, it created a quality management system, a quality manager, and an outside audit trail. Most ISO stuff is manufacturing. And so, did the tool meet the spec or not, right? Where we have more interaction. We're not turning out exactly the same product. We want to be consistent. We want to have high quality, but we don't want to stifle innovation with any of that either. And so that's what kind of made me to get very committed to get certified once I became president. The other thing that kind of bleeds into maybe one of your other questions was we also needed to do something about professional management. As a really small firm, most of the partners, and at least in the Dayton office, go have lunch. As you scale and people are scattered and you're trying to spend more time with your clients, it got to be very hard to just have a group of partners get together and have a discussion. We needed professional management. After I had become president, I had joined an executive dialogue group through the Dayton Chamber. And several of my colleagues in that group had gone to the Aileron class for presidents, and some of them were going beyond that. And one of them said to me, if you go, you got to be open-minded and willing to change. And so I went to that thing, and I came back, and I met with it was an executive committee at the time, and I said, I think you guys all ought to go to the executive classes. And that began our professional management journey. I think that, even more than the quality management system, began the transition to a corporation that was professionally managed, that could grow even beyond what we were trying to accomplish.
And so I think one thing that people take for granted is that leadership is intuitive, or that people know how to lead.
Absolutely. in small engineering firms, you get a couple of people with some leadership qualities, and that works, right? But when you're trying to grow and be diversified and large, leaders are the most important people to keep the company focused and going in the right direction. And you need to train. Everybody needs to have some leadership skill. We used to look at back when we were just a design firm, you'd get a college co-op or somebody out of one of the technical colleges, and they'd become a draftsman. And then somebody would mentor the draftsman to become a design draftsman, and somebody would mentor the design draftsman to become a designer. And so there was this inherent idea that you trained people from the ground up. By adding leadership to that training, it doesn't mean that everybody is going to go all the way to the top and be the next president, but the understanding of what leadership is just really empowering for the company.
So HEAPY transitioned to practices under your tenure. Can you talk a little bit about that?
We decided that really we do need to move to practices. Like I said, a lot of influence from the younger owners and who were really on the ground. They were the team managers at the time, saying, I think we just need to get so that we have expertise. There was a fear that people would feel bored. But I think when you get to be really good at something and clients actually rely on you, that is a great sense of satisfaction. And it helps HEAPY, continue to grow because we can show that expertise. We can be a leader in the market.
What do you feel like is maybe one of the things you're proud of, or the legacy that you want to be remembered for too, from your time being a leader and really transitioning the firm to an enormous amount of modernization?
I just think that the success of the transition, that I felt when I took over that I knew the people here, and I knew what their goals were. Some people wanted to run faster than others. And so I feel like I stayed the course to get it to where they wanted to be. And it's okay to set ambitious goals, and it's okay to not hit them the first time. But the ISO thing was about continuous improvement. Mm-hmm. And so if we're continually improving everything, the quality of the colleague experience, the quality of the product that we deliver, right? The company is doing better financially. You're building a company that people want to work for.
Is there any final thoughts or things that you wanted to make sure you had a chance to convey?
I would just say how proud I am of this firm, that it continues to evolve. I think it's just amazing. From a firm that just kind of did some drawing, worked for architects, and was Marv Heapy's "What do I do after the war is over?" plan, right? He had to do something. Came up with a great idea that just has blossomed over 80 years, transitioned, and continued to grow. Just immense pride. Just immense pride.
This has been an interview with Rick Pavlak, who served as president of HEAPY from 2005 until 2020. Join us next time for a conversation with CEO Mark Brumfield.